My name is Daniel Brooks. For 58 years, I believed I understood my family. I believed love was measured by sacrifice, and that no matter how difficult life became, family would always stand beside you. I was wrong, because the day I walked into that hospital, a complete stranger said something that changed the way I looked at my own children forever. She looked me in the eye and quietly said, "Sir, maybe your daughter can help you instead." I stood there in complete silence. Not because I didn't have a son. I did. A son who owned a company worth millions. A son who drove cars I couldn't even pronounce. A son who spent more on a single business dinner than I earned in an entire month. Yet somehow, everyone believed my daughter would be the one to save me. Looking back now, that receptionist understood my family far better than I ever did. But to explain why she said those words, I have to take you back almost 10 years. Back to the day my life slowly began falling apart. There was a time when people respected me. Not because I was rich, because I was dependable. For nearly 3 decades, I owned a small home renovation company just outside Knoxville, Tennessee. We weren't the biggest contractors in town, but if I promised someone I'd finish a job on Friday, it was finished on Friday. If my workers needed extra hours before Christmas, I found a way. If a customer couldn't afford expensive repairs, I'd quietly lower the bill without telling anyone. Money came and went, but your reputation, that stayed with you. Or at least, that's what I believed. Back then, my wife, Margaret, used to tell everyone how proud she was of me. Our son, Ryan, dreamed of becoming a successful businessman. Our daughter, Emma, wanted nothing more than to help people. She was the kind of little girl who cried whenever she saw injured birds. Even at 12 years old, she carried more kindness than most adults ever learn. Looking back, maybe that should have told me something, because kindness and success don't always grow in the same direction. Everything changed when the county announced a massive commercial development project. Shopping centers, hotels, office buildings, entire neighborhoods. Experts predicted nearby land prices would skyrocket. Every financial advisor I spoke with told me the same thing. This is the opportunity of a lifetime. I wasn't chasing luxury. I wasn't trying to become wealthy. I simply wanted to leave something behind for my family. Something Ryan could expand one day. Something Emma would never have to worry about. So I invested almost everything I'd spent 30 years building. Savings, retirement, business profits, even a loan backed by my equipment. Then, politics changed. Environmental concerns delayed construction. Investors disappeared. Within months, the entire project was canceled. The land became almost worthless overnight. But the loans remained exactly the same. Every morning I woke up hoping for better news. Every evening another bill arrived. I sold company trucks, then machinery, then the warehouse. I even emptied my retirement account trying to keep my employees paid. Most business owners would have declared bankruptcy immediately. I couldn't. Those men had families, children, mortgages. They had trusted me. So I kept paying them until there was simply nothing left. When I finally closed the company, I wasn't crying because I'd lost money. I was crying because I'd lost the work that had defined almost my entire adult life. Starting over at 50 wasn't easy. No company wanted an aging contractor with bad knees and decades of experience running his own business. Eventually, I accepted a job as maintenance supervisor at a regional distribution warehouse. It paid enough to survive, not enough to rebuild. I told myself that was okay. As long as my family stayed together, everything else could be fixed. I couldn't have been more wrong. Ryan graduated from college 2 years later. Brilliant, ambitious, confident. Within a few years, he launched a software company with 2 partners. The business exploded. Investors lined up. Articles praised him as one of Tennessee's youngest entrepreneurs. I couldn't have been prouder. A father never stops celebrating his child's success. But somewhere along the way, Ryan stopped celebrating me. Our conversations became shorter every year. Whenever someone mentioned my old construction company, he quickly changed the subject. Whenever people praised his achievements, he accepted every compliment with a smile, never once mentioning the years his mother and I sacrificed to make those opportunities possible. I told myself he was busy. Successful people usually are. Deep down, I knew it was something else. Success had changed the way he looked at failure. And in his eyes, I had become exactly that. A failure. Emma never saw me that way. After graduating nursing school, she accepted a position at Children's Medical Center. The hours were exhausting. The pay wasn't extraordinary, but every Sunday evening, without fail, she stopped by the house, sometimes carrying homemade soup, sometimes fresh groceries, sometimes absolutely nothing. She'd simply sit beside me on the porch with 2 cups of coffee and ask, "Dad, how are you really doing?" Funny thing about getting older, people stop asking that question. They ask what you're doing, what you're earning, whether you're staying busy. Almost nobody asks how you're actually feeling. Emma always did. And somehow, she always knew when I wasn't telling the truth. One Tuesday evening, I came home later than usual. My legs felt heavier than normal. My breathing wasn't right. Even climbing the front porch steps left me catching my breath. Margaret noticed, but not the way Emma would have. She glanced toward me from the living room. "You're late. We had extra work." She nodded without looking away from the television. Ryan called. "Oh, he just bought another vacation home near the lake. Good for him." He said business has never been better. I smiled. "I'm happy to hear that." She looked at me for a long moment. "I wish you showed that much excitement." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because I didn't know how to explain something she'd stopped noticing years ago. I wasn't unhappy about Ryan's success. I was simply exhausted. There is a difference. That night, while sorting through another stack of overdue bills, a sharp pressure spread across the center of my chest. I froze. The pain lasted only a few seconds, then disappeared. I blamed stress, too much coffee, long hours, anything except the possibility that something inside me was beginning to fail. The next morning, Emma arrived before starting her shift. She took one look at my face and immediately frowned. "Dad, when was the last time you had a complete medical checkup?" I shrugged. "I've been busy." She didn't smile. "No, you've been avoiding it." She reached into her purse, wrote down the name of a cardiologist she trusted, and placed the paper in my hand. "Promise me you'll go." I stared at the paper for several seconds. Doctor visits cost money. Money I didn't have. But I couldn't say no to her. Not when she looked at me with that much concern. Finally, I nodded. "I promise." At that moment, neither of us knew that simple promise was about to change every relationship in my life. Because only a few days later, a doctor would tell me something I never expected to hear. And after hearing those words, I would make the hardest phone call I'd ever made. The first person I called was my millionaire son. I believed Ryan would help without asking a single question. Instead, the conversation lasted less than 2 minutes, and every word he said would stay with me for the rest of my life. There are moments in life when the truth doesn't arrive all at once. It comes quietly, one sentence at a time, one test result at a time, one heartbeat at a time. 3 days after Emma convinced me to schedule an appointment, I found myself sitting inside a cardiologist's office. The waiting room was almost silent. An elderly couple sat across from me holding hands. A young man paced near the window, checking his phone every few seconds. Everyone looked nervous. Everyone except me. I still believed the doctor would tell me to eat healthier, exercise more, maybe cut back on coffee. Nothing serious. After all, I'd worked physically demanding jobs my entire life. I rarely got sick. Surely my body wasn't about to betray me now, or so I thought. After several tests, a nurse escorted me into a consultation room. A few minutes later, Dr. Michael Carter walked in carrying a folder. He wasn't smiling. Doctors don't realize how much their faces speak before they ever open their mouths. He sat across from me. "Mr. Brooks, we found something concerning." Those 4 words instantly made the room feel colder. He placed several scan images on the desk. "One of the arteries supplying blood to your heart is severely blocked." I stared at the images. They looked like meaningless black and white shadows. He pointed to one section. "This blockage is much worse than we expected. What happens if we leave it alone?" The doctor didn't answer immediately. He folded his hands together. "You could suffer a major heart attack. Tomorrow, next week, or 6 months from now. We simply don't know." I swallowed hard. "So what's the solution?" "Surgery." The word echoed inside my head. Heart surgery. It sounded unreal, like something that happened to other people. Not to me. The doctor continued explaining the procedure, recovery time, success rates, medication. I heard almost none of it. My mind stopped listening after one question. How much will it cost? He gave me an estimate. Even after insurance, the amount was more money than I'd managed to save during the past 3 years. I thanked him, shook his hand, walked outside, then sat alone in my truck for nearly 20 minutes. I wasn't afraid of the surgery. I was afraid of becoming a burden. That evening, Emma came by after work. The moment she saw my face, she knew. What did he say? I handed her the folder. She quietly read every page. When she finished, she looked at me with tears filling her eyes. We're going to get through this. We? I smiled. This isn't your problem. It became my problem the day I was born. She squeezed my hand. We'll figure something out. Those words should have comforted me. Instead, they filled me with guilt. She was only 30 years old, working exhausting hospital shifts, paying off student loans, trying to build a future. She shouldn't have to rescue her father. I couldn't let that happen. Not when I had another option. For 2 days, I argued with myself. Every father understands this feeling. You spend your entire life protecting your children. Then one day, you realize you're the one who needs help. Making that phone call felt like admitting defeat. But eventually, pride loses every argument against survival. So I picked up my phone, scrolled to Ryan's name, and pressed call. He answered on the 4th ring. Hey, Dad. He sounded distracted. I hope I'm not interrupting. I'm heading into a meeting. I'll make this quick. He sighed. What's going on? I took a deep breath. I've been diagnosed with a serious heart condition. The line went silent. For one brief second, I thought he was worried. Then he asked, is it treatable? Yes. I need surgery. Okay. Another pause, then came the question. Does insurance cover it? Some of it, but not everything. He exhaled slowly. How much are we talking? I told him. Silence, longer this time. Finally, he spoke. Dad, I wish you'd planned better. For a moment, I honestly thought I'd heard him wrong. What? You know, emergencies happen. People are supposed to prepare for retirement. I stared through the windshield. My own son was giving me financial advice, not asking if I was scared, not asking when the surgery was, not asking whether I was okay. Advice. I wasn't expecting this. I know, but my money's tied up right now. We're expanding internationally. Every dollar is committed. I really can't pull money out at the moment. I closed my eyes. Ryan, I'm not asking for a gift. I'm asking for help. I'll pay you back. He laughed quietly, not cruelly, almost awkwardly. Dad, you know that's probably not realistic. Those words hurt more than the diagnosis itself, because they told me exactly how little faith he still had in me. He kept talking. Something about investments, business obligations, cash flow. I stopped listening. Then he said something I'll never forget. Maybe Emma can help. I frowned. What? She always wanted to take care of people. I'm sure she'll figure something out. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My daughter earns a fraction of what you do. I know, but she's better at these emotional situations. Emotional situations. That's what my life had become. An emotional situation. Not a father asking his son for help, just another inconvenience to manage. I understand, I whispered. You don't have to explain. Don't be upset, Dad. I'm just being practical. Practical. Funny how people hide behind that word. Sometimes practical is simply another way of saying, I don't want to help. After hanging up, I sat in complete silence. I wasn't angry, not yet. I was heartbroken. I remembered teaching Ryan how to ride a bicycle, helping him with school projects, working overtime so he could attend the university he'd dreamed about. None of those memories seemed to matter anymore. Success had rewritten our history. Later that night, Margaret came into the kitchen. You talked to Ryan? I did. What did he say? He can't help. She didn't look surprised. He has responsibilities. So do I. She looked away. You shouldn't expect him to sacrifice everything. I laughed softly. I wasn't asking for everything. I was asking for a chance to stay alive. She said nothing. That silence hurt almost as much as Ryan's words. For the first time in our marriage, I realized Margaret wasn't standing between us. She had already chosen a side. The next morning, Emma arrived before sunrise. She noticed my swollen eyes immediately. "You called him," I nodded. "And," I forced a smile, "he's busy." She didn't ask another question. She didn't have to. She already knew the answer. She simply walked over, wrapped her arms around me, and whispered, "You don't have to carry this alone anymore." At that moment, I had no idea what she was planning. I only knew one thing. Whatever Emma intended to do would change her life forever. 2 days later, Emma disappeared after her hospital shift. When she finally came back, she placed something on my kitchen table that left me speechless. I refused to accept it, but she had already made her decision. There are moments in life when love doesn't announce itself with grand speeches. It arrives quietly, in the choices people make when nobody is watching. I didn't know it then, but while I was grieving the conversation with my son, my daughter was quietly making a decision that would change both of our lives. The morning after Ryan refused to help, Emma left for work before sunrise. She hugged me a little tighter than usual. "I'll stop by after my shift," I smiled. "Don't worry about me." She looked into my eyes for a few seconds. "I always worry about you." Then she left. I spent the rest of the day pretending everything was normal. I mowed the lawn, fixed a loose cabinet door, even washed my old pickup truck. Not because it needed cleaning, because staying busy hurt less than thinking. Every few hours I'd glance toward my phone. Some foolish part of me still hoped Ryan would call back. Maybe he'd thought about our conversation. Maybe he'd spoken to his wife. Maybe he'd realized that no business deal was more important than his father's life. The phone never rang. Around 6 that evening, Margaret walked into the kitchen carrying a grocery bag. "Emma coming tonight?" She said she would. Margaret nodded without looking at me. Then almost casually she asked, "Did Ryan sound upset yesterday?" I looked at her in disbelief. "Upset?" "Well, asking someone for that much money puts them in a difficult position." I stared at my wife, the woman I'd spent 33 years building a life with. "So that's what you think happened?" "I'm just saying you shouldn't pressure him." "I didn't pressure anyone. I asked my son for help because I want to stay alive." She sighed. "You always make things sound dramatic." Dramatic. Heart surgery had somehow become dramatic. I quietly walked outside before saying something I'd regret. Sometimes silence protects a marriage better than arguments ever can. Emma usually arrived around 7. That night, 7 came and went. Then 8. No phone call. No message. I tried convincing myself she had simply been asked to stay late. Hospitals are unpredictable. At 9:15, her car finally pulled into the driveway. The moment she stepped out, I noticed something different. Her smile was there, but her eyes looked exhausted, almost like she'd been crying. "You okay?" She nodded too quickly. "Long day." She walked inside carrying a plain, brown envelope. No groceries, no coffee, just the envelope. She placed it on the kitchen table. "Dad, I need you to open this." I frowned. "What is it?" "Just open it." Inside was a cashier's check. I looked at the amount, then looked back at her. My hands started shaking. "Emma, where did this come from?" She smiled gently. "It doesn't matter." "It matters to me." She pulled out a chair and sat down. "I sold my condo." The room became completely silent. I felt the air leave my lungs. "What did you just say?" "I sold it yesterday." "No, you couldn't have." "I already did." I pushed the check back toward her. "Absolutely not." "Dad." "No. You worked for years to buy that place. And I'd work for years again if it meant keeping you here. You'll have nowhere to live." She shrugged. "I can rent for a while." "No." "I can stay with a friend." "No." "I can even work extra shifts." I shook my head harder. "I won't let you throw your future away because of me." Emma reached across the table and held my trembling hands. You spent your entire life building ours. Please let me protect yours." For several minutes, neither of us spoke. I simply stared at the check. Every dollar represented years of her sacrifice. Night shifts, missed holidays, working weekends, skipped vacations, everything she'd worked so hard to build. She had given up without asking for anything in return. Not because she expected repayment, because she loved me. That's what real love looks like. It doesn't calculate, it doesn't negotiate, it simply shows up. Margaret slowly walked into the kitchen. She looked at the envelope, then at Emma. "You sold your condo?" Emma nodded. "I did." Margaret's eyes widened. "Without talking to anyone?" "There wasn't time." "Emma, that's incredibly irresponsible." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Irresponsible? My daughter had just sacrificed everything she owned. Emma calmly answered, "If Dad doesn't have surgery, there won't be time later." Margaret crossed her arms. "Ryan would have figured something out eventually." Emma's expression changed. For the first time, and I saw anger in her eyes. "No, Mom. He already figured something out. He decided not to help." The room fell silent. Margaret looked away. She didn't deny it. She didn't defend Ryan. She simply remained quiet. That silence told me everything. Late that night, after Emma left, I sat alone on the front porch. The cashier's check was still lying on the kitchen table. I couldn't stop thinking about everything she'd given up. A father is supposed to leave something behind for his children, not the other way around. I felt ashamed, broken, grateful, all at the same time. Then my phone buzzed. It was an email, not from Ryan, not from the hospital, from a law office. The subject line read, "Regarding the estate of Thomas Whitmore." I frowned. I didn't recognize the name. At first, I assumed it was spam. I almost deleted it. Something stopped me. Instead, I opened the message. Inside was a short note. "Mr. Daniel Brooks, our office has been attempting to reach you regarding an inheritance matter. We ask that you contact us at your earliest convenience. This matter is time sensitive." Inheritance? I read the email 3 more times. There had to be a mistake. No one in my family had ever mentioned a Thomas Whitmore. I closed the phone, shook my head, and went inside. Little did I know, that unanswered email was about to turn my entire world upside down. Not because it would make me rich, but because it would reveal a secret that had been waiting for nearly 25 years. The next morning, I almost ignored the lawyer's phone call. If I had, I would have walked away from a fortune that would soon force everyone who had abandoned me to come knocking at my door. The following morning, I woke up convinced the email had been sent to the wrong person. People don't suddenly inherit money from strangers, especially people like me. I spent most of my life working overtime just to pay bills. Luck had never been interested in my address. So after making coffee, I almost deleted the message without reading it again. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. Normally I ignored unknown calls. Something told me not to this time. "Mr. Daniel Brooks?" "Speaking." "My name is Olivia Bennett. I'm an attorney with Bennett & Cole Legal Services, the same law firm from the email. I'm calling regarding the estate of Thomas Whitmore." I rubbed my forehead. "I think you've got the wrong person. We're quite certain we don't. There isn't anyone by that name in my family." "I understand why you'd think that, but we'd appreciate the opportunity to explain." Her calm voice made me hesitate. "Can you come to our office this afternoon?" "I don't know. This matter has legal deadlines, Mr. Brooks. It would be in your best interest." I looked at the clock, then at the stack of unpaid bills sitting on my kitchen counter. I had nothing to lose. "I'll be there." The law office occupied the top floor of a quiet brick building downtown. Everything inside felt expensive. Dark wooden furniture, marble floors, paintings that probably cost more than my truck. A receptionist greeted me with a warm smile. "Mr. Brooks? Ms. Bennett is expecting you." She escorted me into a conference room. A woman in her early 40s stood as I entered. She extended her hand. "Thank you for coming." I almost didn't. She smiled politely. "So we're told." She opened a thick file resting on the table. Before we begin, I need to verify your identity. After checking my driver's license, she nodded. There's no mistake. You are the Daniel Brooks we've been trying to locate. I leaned back in my chair. So, who exactly was Thomas Whitmore? She looked down at the file. 26 years ago, Mr. Whitmore owned a manufacturing company in Nashville. I searched my memory. Nothing. I've never met him. No. You met his daughter. I frowned. What? She slid an old newspaper clipping across the table. It showed a terrible highway accident. The headline was faded with age. I stared at the picture. Then suddenly, I remembered. 26 years earlier, I had been driving home after finishing a remodeling project. Traffic had stopped because of a serious accident. A young woman was trapped inside an overturned car. Before emergency crews arrived, several people stood watching. Nobody moved. Without thinking, I climbed through the broken window. The car smelled like gasoline. Smoke filled the air. I managed to pull her free moments before flames reached the engine. The ambulance arrived minutes later. Police took my statement. Then life moved on. I never learned her name. I never expected to. Olivia gently closed the newspaper clipping. That young woman was Rebecca Whitmore. My client. I blinked several times. She's alive? She is. She survived because of you. I shook my head. I only did what anyone would have done. Olivia smiled. According to police reports, no one else did. She opened another folder. Rebecca spent years trying to find the man who saved her. But your address had changed. Your business relocated. Records disappeared. We simply couldn't find you. I sat there speechless. For over 2 decades, someone had been looking for me, without me ever knowing. 2 years ago, Olivia continued, Rebecca passed away after a long illness. I'm sorry. So are we. She never had children. No husband. No immediate heirs. I quietly lowered my eyes. What does that have to do with me? Olivia folded her hands. Everything. She placed a sealed envelope in front of me. This was written by Rebecca 6 months before her passing. You may read it now. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter. The first sentence stopped me cold. To the man who gave me a second chance at life. I swallowed hard. She remembered. After all these years, she remembered. The letter explained how that single act of courage allowed her to build a life she never would have had. She became an architect, started a charitable foundation, cared for her aging father, created scholarships for nursing students. Every chapter of her life existed because someone she never knew refused to leave her inside that burning vehicle. Near the end of the letter, one paragraph made my eyes fill with tears. If this letter has reached you, it means I never had the chance to thank you in person. My father always believed debts of gratitude should never remain unpaid. I agree. I looked up. I don't understand. Olivia slowly slid one final document across the table. I think you will now. It wasn't a will. It wasn't a check. It was a legal notice informing me that I had been named the beneficiary of a private family trust, established by Thomas Whitmore years before his death. I looked from the document back to Olivia. There has to be some mistake. There isn't. The trust becomes active once all legal verification is complete. How long will that take? About 2 weeks. And until then, we ask that you keep this completely confidential. No one can know. No friends. No family. No one. I slowly nodded. For the first time in months, I walked out of that office feeling something unfamiliar. Not happiness, hope, but I had no idea. Keeping that secret was about to become the hardest part. Because when people think you're broke, they show you who they really are. But when they discover you're about to become wealthy, they become someone you've never met before. For the next 2 weeks, I told no one about the trust. Then Ryan suddenly started calling every day, completely unaware that my life had already changed, and that I was about to make a decision that would change his forever. Some people say money changes people. I don't believe that. Money doesn't change anyone. It simply removes the mask they've been wearing. For the next 2 weeks, I told no one about the trust. Not Emma, not Margaret, certainly not Ryan. The only people who knew were my attorney, Olivia Bennett, and the legal team handling the estate. Every morning I went to work. Every evening I came home. Life looked exactly the same from the outside. But inside, everything had changed. Not because I suddenly felt rich, because for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid anymore. Emma continued preparing for my surgery. She attended every doctor's appointment. She organized my medication. She even created a notebook with every instruction the surgeon had given us. Sometimes I'd catch her sitting at the kitchen table late at night, reading through medical information with tired eyes. "You should be sleeping," I'd tell her. She'd smile. "I'll sleep after you're healthy again. No parent deserves that kind of child." And yet, somehow I had one. Ryan never called, not once. Almost 3 weeks passed without hearing his voice. Then, one Friday afternoon, my phone rang. "Ryan," I answered immediately. "Hey, son." "Hi, Dad." His voice sounded strangely cheerful. "How have you been?" I frowned. "I'm all right. How's your health?" It was the first time he'd asked. I almost smiled. "Still waiting for surgery." "Good. I mean, not good." "I just meant, I'm glad there's a plan." Something felt different. Ryan wasn't calling because he was worried. He sounded curious. Before I could ask why, he changed the subject. "So, have you heard from any lawyers recently?" My heart skipped a beat. Lawyers? How could he possibly know? I kept my voice calm. "No." "Why?" "Oh, no reason." "I thought maybe someone had been trying to contact you." My grip tightened around the phone. "What makes you think that?" "I heard someone asking about you downtown." "Probably nothing." Then, almost as quickly as he'd called, he ended the conversation. "Anyway, take care of yourself. We'll talk soon." The line went dead. I stared at the phone. Something wasn't right. The following Monday, Olivia called. "Mr. Brooks, the court has completed its review. And everything has been approved." I closed my eyes. "So, it's official?" "Yes. The trust is now legally yours." For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she added, "There is one final meeting next Thursday. We'll transfer ownership and complete the remaining paperwork." I thanked her, then quietly hung up. The money itself wasn't what overwhelmed me. It was the realization that my life had somehow come full circle. One act of kindness, one decision made without expecting anything in return, had returned decades later in a way I never imagined. A few days later, Emma drove me to the hospital. The surgery had finally arrived. I looked out the passenger window during the entire drive. Not because I was scared, because I was thinking about everything she'd sacrificed just to get me here. She noticed. "You all right?" "I've been trying to think of a way to thank you." She laughed softly. "You already have." "How?" "You've been my dad. No gift could ever be worth more than that." I looked away before she noticed my eyes filling with tears. The surgery lasted almost 5 hours. When I finally opened my eyes, everything felt blurry. The first face I saw was Emma's. She looked exhausted. Dark circles surrounded her eyes. She'd obviously been sitting there the entire time. "You scared me," she whispered. "I told you. I'm too stubborn." She laughed through tears. That's exactly what the surgeon said. Recovery wasn't easy. Walking hurt. Breathing hurt. Even standing felt impossible. But every single day, Emma was there, helping me take one more step, one more breath, one more day. Ryan never visited. He sent flowers, a card, and a short text message. "Hope recovery goes well." That was all. Oddly enough, it didn't hurt anymore, because expectations had disappeared. You can't be disappointed by someone once you stop expecting them to show up. 2 weeks after returning home, the legal paperwork was finally complete. Olivia invited me back to her office. This time, she smiled the moment I walked in. "Congratulations, Mr. Brooks." The transfer has officially been finalized. She placed several folders in front of me, bank documents, property records, investment accounts. Everything now legally belonged to me. Then she quietly asked, "Have you decided what you'd like to do?" I nodded. "I have. I'd like to create a family trust." She smiled. "Who will be the primary beneficiary?" I didn't hesitate. "My daughter." Olivia wasn't surprised. She simply nodded. "And your son?" I looked out the window for a long moment, then answered honestly. "My son already inherited something valuable." She waited. "My time, my sacrifices, my opportunities. He just never realized it." Olivia slowly closed her notebook. "I understand. But," I continued, "I don't want revenge. I just want fairness. So here's what I'd like." She listened carefully as I explained every detail. By the time we finished, a brand new trust had been drafted. One designed not to punish anyone, but to reward the only person who never abandoned me. As I stood to leave, Olivia handed me one final envelope. "There's just one last thing." "What's this?" "A formal invitation. For next Friday. Everyone you've named in the trust needs to be present." I looked at the envelope, then smiled for the first time in months. "Do they know why they're coming?" Olivia smiled back. "Not yet." I slipped the envelope into my jacket. For weeks, my family had believed I was a sick old man struggling to survive. Next Friday, they were about to discover just how wrong they had been. The conference room fell completely silent when the attorney opened the final envelope. My son smiled, convinced he was about to inherit a fortune. 30 seconds later, he realized the greatest investment I ever made was never in money. It was in the daughter who never stopped believing in me. The following Friday, I arrived at Bennett and Cole nearly 20 minutes early. Not because I was nervous, because I wanted a few quiet moments before everything changed. Olivia Bennett greeted me with a warm smile. "Good morning, Mr. Brooks." "Good morning. Are you certain about your decision?" I looked through the large conference room window. Sunlight spilled across the polished table where my family would soon be sitting. "I've never been more certain." She nodded. "Then let's begin." 10 minutes later, the door opened. Ryan walked in first. Tailored navy blue suit, expensive watch, phone still in his hand. Behind him came Margaret. She looked confused. Emma arrived last. She wore her hospital scrubs, having come straight from work. She apologized as she entered. "I'm sorry I'm late," I smiled. "You've never kept me waiting." Ryan looked around the room. "Dad, what's all this about?" "I'll let Olivia explain." Everyone took their seats. The room became quiet. Olivia opened the first folder. "Thank you all for coming. You've been invited because Mr. Daniel Brooks has completed the administration of a private family trust and wishes its terms to be presented in your presence." Ryan glanced toward me. "A trust?" I simply nodded. Olivia continued. "Several weeks ago, Mr. Brooks became the legal beneficiary of the Whitmore Family Trust." Ryan's eyebrows lifted. Margaret looked completely stunned. Emma turned toward me. "Dad, what is she talking about?" I smiled softly. "I'll explain in a minute." Olivia briefly summarized the story. The highway accident, Rebecca Whitmore, the years she spent searching for the man who saved her life, the letter she'd left behind. When she finished, the room fell silent. Emma reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I never knew." "I didn't either." Ryan leaned forward. "So, what exactly is in the trust?" "Always practical, always focused on the numbers." Olivia opened another document. "The trust includes investment accounts, commercial property interests, and other financial assets." She paused. "The combined value is approximately $13.8 million. Ryan's eyes widened. Margaret covered her mouth. Emma simply stared at me, not one word. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then Ryan smiled. "Dad, that's incredible." "It really is. I knew things would turn around for you." I looked at him quietly. "Did you?" because 3 weeks earlier, he couldn't spare a dollar. Now, he was talking about our future. He continued, "This changes everything." It certainly does. I've actually been thinking, our company is expanding again. There might be opportunities for us to work together. I almost laughed, not because he was joking, because he wasn't. Olivia gently interrupted. "Before any assumptions are made, we should continue reading Mr. Brooks's instructions." Ryan leaned back. "Of course." She opened the final document. "This trust has already been transferred into a newly established family foundation, according to Mr. Brooks's wishes." Ryan nodded confidently. "Sounds good." Olivia continued reading. "The primary beneficiary and future trustee of the Brooks Family Foundation is..." She looked toward Emma. "Emma Brooks." Silence. Complete silence. Ryan blinked. "I'm sorry." "What?" Olivia repeated herself. "Emma Brooks has been appointed sole trustee and primary beneficiary." Ryan frowned. "So, what does that mean?" "It means ownership and decision-making authority belong entirely to Emma." His confident smile disappeared. "And me?" Olivia calmly turned another page. "Mr. Ryan Brooks has not been named as a financial beneficiary." The room froze. Ryan looked directly at me. "Dad, this has to be some mistake." "It isn't. You left everything to Emma?" "I left it to the person who never left me." His face turned pale. I apologized. "No, you explained." "Those aren't the same thing." He looked genuinely shocked. "You can't seriously believe I don't love you." I took a slow breath. "I never questioned whether you loved me. I questioned what your love was willing to sacrifice." I stood from my chair. For the first time in years, I wasn't speaking as a frightened father. I was speaking as a man finally at peace. "Ryan, when you were 12 years old, you wanted a bicycle we couldn't afford. So I worked every Saturday for 3 months to buy it. When you got into college, I sold my fishing boat to help pay tuition. When your first business struggled, I refinanced this house to help you keep your dream alive." You don't remember those things. I do. I never expected repayment. But when I asked you for help, you didn't see your father. You saw a financial problem. Ryan lowered his eyes. "I was under pressure. So was Emma. She sold her home. You protected your investments. She protected my life. Those two decisions told me everything I needed to know." Ryan's voice became quieter. "I've made a terrible mistake." "Yes, you have. I can't change the past." "No, but you can change who you become." The room fell silent again. I walked over to him, placed my hand on his shoulder. "I don't hate you. I never could. You're my son. And I hope one day you'll understand that wealth isn't measured by what you keep. It's measured by what you're willing to give away." Ryan's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry, Dad." This time, it sounded real. Not because he had lost money, because, perhaps for the first time, he understood what he had almost lost forever. I hugged him. Not because he'd earned forgiveness, because carrying bitterness would have been another burden I no longer wanted. Emma quietly wiped away tears. "Dad, I don't need $13 million. "I know. Then why me?" I smiled. "Because money doesn't make good people. It reveals them. You proved your character long before this trust ever existed. I trust you to use it wisely." Emma hugged me tighter than she ever had before. "I'll make you proud. You already have." As we prepared to leave, Olivia handed Emma Rebecca Whitmore's original letter. There was one final request. Emma unfolded it carefully. The last sentence read, "The man who saved my life taught me that kindness never truly disappears. It simply waits for the right moment to come home." No one spoke. There was nothing left to say. A month later, Emma established the Brooks Family Hope Foundation. It helped families struggling to afford emergency medical treatment. No parent would ever have to choose between saving a loved one and losing everything they owned. Ryan volunteered at the foundation's fundraising events, not because anyone asked him to, because he wanted to earn back something money could never buy: respect. As for Margaret, she apologized, not once, many times. Healing took longer than forgiveness, but healing eventually came. People often ask me if I regret saving a stranger all those years ago. I always smile, because they misunderstand the story. The greatest reward wasn't the money, it wasn't the trust, it wasn't even justice. The greatest reward was discovering who stood beside me when I had absolutely nothing. Because in the end, a family's true wealth isn't counted in bank accounts. It's counted in the people who refuse to let go of your hand when life gives them every reason to walk away. And that's a fortune no amount of money can ever replace. Every scar has a story. Every betrayal has a reckoning. Welcome to Old Man's Reckoning.